Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Sprott Natural Resource Symposium, which, of course, in this unprecedented year of 2020, is online this year. So I am Jeff Clark. I am the senior analyst at goldsilver.com. I work with Mike Maloney there, and I'm pleased to be interviewing today Keith Neumeyer, the CEO of First Majestic Silver. So Keith, thanks a lot for joining us, and welcome to the Sprott Natural Resource Symposium.
Well, thanks, Jeff. Normally we get to see each other face to face, but unfortunately we have to do this virtual this time around.
Yes, right. Well, let's just jump into it. So what we're going to talk about is silver, of course, today, and then we'll get into First Majestic Silver. Lots going on with the company, and we'll give everyone a nice update today so they know exactly where the company stands as well as where the stock stands. So first thing probably to talk about, Keith, is the silver price itself. Gold is one of the leading asset classes this year. It's up more than almost any other asset class here in 2020. Still here as we talk in mid-July. Yet silver is barely up on the year. It's logged like a 1 or 2% gain. It's been teasing around the $19 area. Futures have exceeded 19, but spot has not really exceeded 19 yet. So silver's really lagging the gold price. So I think the question a lot of investors that love silver, like you and I, are why is the silver price lagging, and what do you see as the future for the silver price here over the next, medium to long term? Not next week, but over the rest of the year, into next year, over the next 2 to 3 years. What's your view of the silver price with that in mind?
Oh, well, sure, Jeff. I think that silver, is a metal of two faces, and definitely it's a precious metal. Definitely it's affected by gold prices. I think it would be kind of hard pressed to have silver prices going up in a negative gold environment. So I think, first off, you need a positive gold environment, which of course we do have. And, going back to late 2018, gold has been on a pretty nice run. Silver has lagged in the ratio today as, around 100 to 1, which is pretty crazy in itself. And, we're only mining 8 to 1, globally as a mining sector. So how the heck we trade at 100 to 1, it even kind of boggles my mind. But nevertheless, these are paper instruments that trade on the COMEX, and that's what the pricing mechanism is, for our metals, which is in itself an unfortunate way of pricing such an important commodity. But it is, what it is. And it gets caught in kind of this base metal copper story, and copper got all the way down to close to $2, back in March, which was pretty crazy. And it looked even that it might even have, it was trying to break through $2. It never did, of course, but thank goodness it did, and it didn't. Copper today hit $2.90. So, I think that the bottom line, silver, 70% of silver is used in industry in some shape or form. And if there's a perception in the institutional or investor space where the economy is slowing, silver will be negatively impacted by that negative sentiment towards the world economy. Whether that's right or wrong, we could have that debate. I personally I don't really particularly buy into that debate, but it does affect price. I guess at the bottom line, both of you and I know that silver is a lagger, and when the world does wake up to the fact that gold is going a lot higher, which even surprises me that people still don't believe the fact that gold's in a bull market. When they see gold almost getting up to all-time highs, there's still very little money chasing this market. Very few investors are still coming into this space. But when that does happen and people do wake up, then all of a sudden silver will explode, and that's when it starts to outperform gold.
I agree wholeheartedly, but is there a catalyst in particular that you're looking for, Keith, or some scenario or something that happens? And of course, it could be a black swan event too, right? But is there some catalyst that you're looking for that in your view, would ignite the silver market and push this catch up to the silver that you're talking, or push the catch up to gold that you're talking about?
I've long, thought that, supply demand, had everything to do with price. But, unfortunately, as my career has developed and, as I've got older and learned that, in fact, price, is not affected by supply demand. It's all affected by sentiment.
Mm.
You once silver shows up in a headline somewhere and we don't know what that means, does that mean that,
Yeah.
Sony or Samsung or Tesla or BMW or you name the company out there that requires silver in vast quantities to produce the products that they produce, all of a sudden that they can't produce a product anymore, and that hits up and comes up on the headlines, and all the institutions on the planet wake up and say, holy cow, I need to buy silver. Of course, all the consumers are paranoid that's going to happen. So they don't want to tell you what their demands are because, they don't want to see what happened in the cobalt market or the palladium market where, every single hedge fund on the planet starts front running all the end users. So they're trying to prevent that as much as possible, keeping silver out of the headlines. But eventually, I think there will be something that happens, and I don't know what the triggering event is going to be, but I know that the market is extremely tight, and the inevitability of that the real silver story hitting the headlines will ultimately happen.
Yes, and actually, that's the next question I wanted to talk to you about, because just this morning, I saw silver supply, in a headline that made me think silver supply is going to become an issue. So let me lay the groundwork here for the kind of research that I've done, and I want to get your reaction to this. First of all, and I've got to look off camera, but mine production from the 10 largest silver producing countries, put that into a graph, and this is on our website if anybody would like to look at it, is in a major decline. In fact, this is the 4th year of declines. And this research was done before COVID even struck. And so you have a major decline in every single country of the top 10 that produce silver. On top of that, last year in the primary silver industry, believe it or not, there was only one new silver mine that came online for a primary silver company. Only one new mine that was developed and came online in 2019. One, that's it. Meanwhile, as you and I both know, the bulk of silver supply on the mine side comes from as a byproduct. So roughly 3 out of 4 ounces. Well, copper mines, lead, zinc, all that. There's a projection from S&P Global Market Intelligence that says they're going to actually spend less CapEx. There's going to be less CapEx going into mine development, exploration, operations, all of that over at least the next 3 years. And again, this research was also done pre-COVID. So they're already projecting those guys are going to be spending less. And of course, if they spend less to develop, that means less silver is going to come out of the ground as well. Then you have scrap. Scrap is down, believe it or not, 28%. Scrap supply for silver is down 28% just since its peak in 2011. That's a trend that's just not really letting up. All of this is suggesting, of course, that there's going to be less silver that's coming to market. And I just read this morning, Keith, that Tesla and now BMW is locking in cobalt supply for the next 5 years. They're buying it ahead for the next 5 years. On top of that, you have VW that just announced last week that they've stopped production of all combustion engines at their plant in Germany. Now, I don't know if this is VW-wide, but at a plant, one of their main plants in Germany, they're stopping production of all combustion engines. They just produced their last one, which means they're going to EV vehicles, right? Electric vehicles. And as you and I know, silver is a primary ingredient. More silver is used in EVs than it is in combustion engines. So I put all this together, and I just wonder what's going to happen to the silver supply in the future. And could we see like a Samsung, who you've talked to, I believe, come along and say, hey, we're going to lock in silver supply X amount, millions of ounces for the next 5 years or whatever. You add all this up, and my point is that you have all this supply being crimped at a time when demand is probably going to go up, because I think investment demand of silver is only going to continue to climb, especially over the next 2 to 3 years. What is your reaction to all of this kind of supply demand crunch that I think is being set up right now?
Well, when I put the company together back, 18 years ago in 2002, 2003, I did an analysis on what metal, I should be, building a business around. And, I came from a copper business. And so I'm very much the supply demand fundamentalist. I looked at the variety of metals. I looked at, of course, gold but I settled on silver, and for the reasons that you've so nicely laid out, and those reasons for my take on this market was hasn't changed. It's actually got much better. You go back to 2002, 2003. This was the beginning of the story. Solar panels barely existed. Electric cars, of course, did not exist. Computer systems, cell phones, all these technologies were pretty new in the making. And so today we've got households with multiple televisions. We have households with multiple automobiles. All these are extreme drivers of consumption of very important metals. Of course, we're talking about silver today, but this ball's not going backwards. We're getting off oil and gas as the human race. We're going green. We're coming up with new ways to electrify this planet in much more sustainable fashion. For the long-term health of our planet, and that means we need a lot more silver than we're currently mining. And silver is difficult to mine. It's not an easy metal to find, and it's a very tough metal to mine because it doesn't have the same attributes as gold. That seems to just fall out of rock if you throw a little bit of chemicals at. Silver is very expensive to mine and refine, and that's why the silver space has relatively high cost, because of complexities of the ore sitting in the Earth's crust. And we need much higher metal prices if we expect to do what we're wanting to do. Get off the oil and gas bottle and really electrify this planet, in a much more sustainable fashion. We need probably double the amount of supply that the miners are currently supplying to this market. And how are they going to do that? They surely can't do it at sub $20 an ounce silver.
Right. The only answer is higher silver prices. You're right.
Yeah. If we're going to do what what we need to do, I think we need triple-digit silver. And I think we probably ultimately need to start mining old waste dumps, because a lot of the silver has been put into waste dumps in the form of television, electronic components, and refrigerators and washing machines, just sitting in places that it was just today at $18, $20 silver. It's just not economic. To pull out $3 or $4 worth of silver out of an old cell phone is going to cost you probably 10 or 15 bucks to do it.
Right.
So who's going to bother? And that's why all these technologies just get thrown away into waste dumps. I've said many times, 20, 30 years from now, we will be mining waste dumps.
Yeah, good point. Well, I think you're going to be right. I think someday you're going to see a headline. We've mentioned Samsung. Samsung's going to come along and say, hey, we're locking up silver supply for X million number of ounces and for the next 5 years. And when we see that happen, I think that's going to be the beginning. So,
well, one thing I can promise our shareholders is that we won't be on the other side of that trade.
That's right. That's right. Very good. Well, and speaking of shareholders and speaking of the company itself, let's talk about First Majestic Silver. So I have a series of things I'd like to get updated from you, Keith, that we can share with other shareholders here and viewers. So first of all, all of your mines are located in Mexico. It was shut down there temporarily for COVID, but all mines are back online for First Majestic now?
They are. They're not quite 100% yet. Lunkentada is reaching its budget 100%, so that's nice to see. San Dimas and Santa Elena are a little bit behind. Santa Elena is the most challenged one right now. Bringing people back to work is proving to be a bit of a challenge. The government of Mexico set up a system whereby if you are deemed vulnerable, then you don't have to go back to work. And there's a vulnerable list is fairly extensive. So, if you have diabetes or if you're overweight or obese or you have hypertension, a variety of different, medical ailments. But the list is fairly long. And we have several hundred workers that in our total business, something close to 5,000 employees that are deemed vulnerable. And so it's hurting some of the production because we just simply don't have the manpower to bring them all back to work. So, it would be interesting to see how long that actually takes. But, the biggest challenge we have right now is making up the production that we lost. And we have a plan in place to end the year on a very positive note. We don't know if we can make it all back. It's obviously when you're offline for 2 months, it's a big, effort to all of a sudden bring that back. And we'll bring some back, but it's just, we'll be renewing our guidance in the next couple of weeks. We'll put out a news release discussing exactly what's going on and what we're expecting to happen going forward. But it's really nice to get back to work for sure.
Yeah, great. That's good to hear. So it'll come. So one of the reasons that I like the stock so much, and full disclosure for everyone, I am a large shareholder of First Majestic Silver, own a bunch of shares. But one reason I like it, Keith, is because of the future here with these HIG mills and what that means in terms of recovery rates, how that increases production, how it lowers costs. The HIG mill being a high intensity grinding mill. These are fairly rare in the industry. Not many, mining companies have them, but you do. You have, and if you could kind of bring us up to date on that, I think you have one installed, one on the way, and one on order, if I'm not mistaken. So bring us up to date on the status of the HIG mills and what that actually means for the company in terms of recovery rates.
Yeah, interestingly enough, First Quantum Minerals, which is a company I founded back in the early 90s, was the first company who adopted a HIG mill in Africa back 5 years ago, I think it was. It's on the website of the manufacturer, the whole list of companies that have purchased the technology, and they're on that list. So completely nothing to do with me, but it's just coincidentally that I just bring that up for interest point. But we were very happy to have our first installation. I flew over to Austria back in August of 2018 to watch this thing being built. Obviously, it was taking some risk, being one of the first to get this technology. When we did our financial analysis, we needed 2% extra silver and 2% extra gold to actually make it economic to make this investment. It was about a $12 million investment total at the Santa Elena mill. Okay. And the same machine that I saw arrived in Mexico in January 2019. It was up and running by July 2019. And lo and behold, recoveries went up 5 to 6% for both gold and silver. And we were just blown away with how efficient this thing is. It's using less electricity. It doesn't use balls, which traditional ball mills use. And using ball mills, it's interesting because these balls degrade over time, and it leaves iron in the ore, which of course then gets treated by cyanide. And cyanide and iron don't act very well together. And it causes your cyanide consumption to spike if there's too much iron in your ore. Now we've eliminating iron using the HIG mill system. We're actually seeing cyanide consumption drop, and we're seeing obviously the recoveries go up, but we're also seeing doré quality go up as well. So there's all kinds of cost benefits that go right through the entire process by using this new technology. And we had one shipped to Lincoln-Tata. It's unfortunately sitting on the ground right now, just waiting for some final engineering work. We don't expect to see it up and running until probably mid-2021. But San Dimas, we were very, very lucky to get a permit. It came through the Panama Canal from Europe, and it was dropped at the port in Mazatlan, Mexico, and it was trucked from Mazatlan all the way to the San Dimas mine, which was quite an effort. This is a huge, wide, big piece of equipment that they basically had to shut the highway down to get it to site. Oh, wow. And we had to have a bunch of special permits to do this. And in the COVID situation actually helped us, because the government was nice enough to give us the permit during the COVID pandemic. And the fact that we were able to get that permit allowed us to transport this piece of equipment on the highway when there was no one on the highway.
So, that's great.
Yeah, so it went without any ripples at all. It was beautifully delivered. I had photographs all the way, and now we're constructing all the foundations, and it should be, hopefully, it'll be, it's slightly delayed, of course, because of the COVID situation, but we hope to see it up and running by Q4. Now we're looking at Q1 of 2021, and we're expecting very similar types of improvements to that operation with this new technology.
That's great. So basically it means, without doing anything else, once this is installed, greater production at a lower cost. So you can't argue with that. So
yeah, and then look, this goes back to an earlier change I made to the business back in 2012, when things started to get pretty ugly. When I noticed that the metal price was coming down pretty quickly, it dropped from 50 to 40 pretty quickly in 2012, and then in 2013 it's continually started going lower into the 30s, and then by 2014, silver in June of 2014 crashed through $20 and hit $16 an ounce that year, and we started losing money. All the operations started losing money, and it was fortunately I put in place a new division within the company, a technical service division, who I gave the mandate to find any place within the business that they could actually save money. So from 2014, January 2014, for a 5-year period going into 2019, we actually reduced our costs by 50% by the use of or implementation of different technologies.
Wow, that's planning to be profitable right there. So, Well, Keith, we only got about 5 minutes left, so let me rapid fire throw a few questions at you and get your quick responses. So first of all, can you give us an update on, there's a tax dispute there with the Mexican authorities. I'm personally not worried about it for a variety of reasons, but some investors are. Can you give us just a real brief update on what the status of that is?
Sure. Yeah, it's we're getting questions about it for sure. It's always a difficult situation when you're fighting with government that you're actively paying taxes to and supporting. But it is a unique situation. It's a legacy issue. It goes back to 2012. It came with the San Dimas mine that we bought in May of 2018. We knew the issue existed at the time, of course. We've been always optimistic that we're going to resolve it. The current government, is a new government. They've only been in power for a couple of years, and of late, they've taken a fairly aggressive approach to foreign taxpayers, including ourselves. And it's a little bit unusual. We do think that they're offside. We don't think that they really have much legal backing in what they're saying. But nevertheless, we were spending too much money on it. We've got too many lawyers and too many consultants, trying to resolve this issue. The Canadian government's now helping us out. There's direct discussions going on between both governments, and we're involved in some of them, and we're looking for a resolution. We're hoping a resolution will happen over the next couple of months, but always when you deal with government, so it's always uncertain. But we feel that we're in the right, and we think whatever it gets resolved will be, obviously beneficial for everyone. But at the same time, I think it's in our best interest to get it resolved as quickly as possible. But at the same time, we're not just going to bend over and be extorted for some crazy amount of money just because the government seems to think they are owed that amount of money.
Right, exactly. And I think as shareholders, we're all glad you're sticking up for that. So now as a public company, I know you can't say a lot about M&A, but just the general topic about M&A for First Majestic, is there anything you can share with us that might be coming down the road for the company?
Well, there's always something coming down the road. It's just a matter of time. What I am good at is patience. And I'm generally good at buying good assets and at the right price. So in a market where you see $1,800 gold and silver looking like it's wanting to go to $20 or higher, it sometimes makes the whole M&A process a little bit more challenging. But we're active. We're looking at lots of stuff. We know the silver space better than most people out there. The last two acquisitions, grew the business quite substantially. The acquisition at the end of 2015 almost doubled the size of the business. The acquisition in mid-2018 almost doubled the size of the business as well. So we're not looking for, acquiring an exploration property. We're looking to acquire, big chunky assets that can really make a change to our business and hopefully benefit our shareholders.
Right. Good. Now, as we're recording this, you haven't released your Q2 guidance yet, but it'll be out by the time this video shows. So I don't know what you can share today, but maybe some good news there, or what are you allowed to say about your Q2 report that's going to be coming out?
Q2, I think there was some production, but Q2's quite frankly a bit of a write-off. We had we started shutting the mines down in March. By April they're virtually almost at a standstill. By May there was virtually nothing going on, and then by June they started to add ounces again. So I haven't seen what the final production numbers are. I haven't seen what the financials are yet, but I'm not expecting to see any kind of exciting number in Q2 by any stretch of the imagination. But
no, right. But the guidance for the rest of the year might be in that report, I'm guessing, and maybe that's more optimistic.
Oh, yeah. Well, thanks for bringing that up, Jeff, because, we will be putting out guidance for the second half of 2020 at the same time that we put out that news. And we're expecting to have a great Q3 and great Q4. So we've got lots of great things to look forward to. Exploration is starting up again. All the construction projects that we had running, they're all coming back to start up again as well. So we're going to end 2020 on a very, very strong note. That's
great. That's great. Well, believe it or not, it's almost been a half an hour already, and I think that's our time limit. So I just want to wrap it up, and thank you for joining us and here at the Sprott Natural Resource Symposium. And Keith can't say this, but I can, and that is the stock of First Majestic Silver has demonstrated enormous leverage to the silver price in the past. I've done the research. It's anywhere from 2 times to as much as 10 times. No guarantees that that'll happen again, but the leverage there has been tremendous because they have one of the highest leverage. They have the highest amount of revenue from silver production of almost any company out there. There's a few real small ones, but a company of any size, they have the highest leverage to the silver price. That's why you see that. So that's why I like the stock a lot. It has been a tremendous, producer in the past. If you're a shareholder, so I do expect to see that again. So just as we wrap this up, Keith, is there any last minute things that you'd like to say? I'll point out that anyone can find me at goldsilver.com or in my Twitter handle at @thegoldadvisor. Keith, the company is at firstmajestic.com, and also their Twitter handle is FM Silver Corp for Twitter. So Keith, thanks again for joining us. Any last minute things you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, I would just suggest that the listeners go look at our website, go have a look at the PowerPoint presentation, because there's lots of really good detailed information in the PowerPoint. We didn't really get to talk about the company's assets to get to any great degree today, and they're exciting assets, and I would suggest people look a little more deeply. And also, you can track me down at my Twitter account. It's just at Keith_Neumeyer, and I do the odd tweet now and then.
Yeah, great. Okay, thanks, Keith, and we'll see you down the road, and I'll see you at $20 silver, and then $30 silver, and then who knows?
Yeah. Well, next time, hopefully, it's face-to-face.
Right, exactly. Okay, thanks, everyone. Have a good summer, and we'll talk to you next time.